for Mackenzie?
Yes.
No. I don't know.
How's everybody doing today?
Good.
It is getting hot, isn't it?
Yes.
So how many days left do you have school?
2.5.
I know, I can't even believe it. Doesn't it seem just like we were back in August doing an art project?
No.
Yeah.
It does. It went by really fast. All right. I told you guys the last time I was here I was going to France. Do you guys remember that?
Yes.
And when I was in France, I bought this really old pot. Now I know it's hard to believe, but this pot is even older than Mr. Linder or myself. This pot is like 100 to 150 years old. It's called a confit pot. And I have filled it with sunflowers. Does anybody want to take a guess, with the exception of my own son, who knows who we're talking about today, which artist are we going to be talking about? Does anybody have an idea? How about Rebecca?
Leonardo da Vinci?
Oh, we talked about Leonardo da Vinci in February. Remember, we made that great model because he used to make the models. That was an excellent guess. How about you, Mackenzie? Do you want to take a guess? Which one? Not Donatello either. This image right here is based on one of his most famous series of paintings. And so I'll have one more person try and tell me. How about Daniel? Not quite. All right. So today, who we're going to talk about is Vincent van Gogh. And Van Gogh was born more than 150 years ago in the Netherlands. So that means that he is Dutch. And the Netherlands is very close to where, Frederick?
Denmark?
Denmark, yeah, because Frederick is from Denmark, and oh, we're so sad because we're going to be losing Frederick soon. He's going to be missed. So Vincent van Gogh had many, many jobs. He once worked in an art gallery. He worked as a teacher. He worked in a bookstore, and he even worked as a preacher for a little bit. Around 1880, his brother Theo, who was an art dealer, suggested that he become a full-time artist. And if you think about it, if Theo was working in an art gallery, he was probably surrounded by beautiful art. And so he knew what good art looked like. And for him to say to his brother, wow, I think you should become a full-time artist, that was really saying something, because he knew what good art was. So he had been looking at some of Van Gogh's drawings, and he thought, you know, my brother should be an artist. So when Vincent van Gogh first started painting, he really liked to play with light, and he used loose brush strokes and very, very dark tones. And he also liked to paint everyday common people, like peasants, farmers, you know, just your everyday hardworking people. And that's why often when you see self-portraits of Van Gogh, he's often dressed very casually, much like a farmer or a peasant would have looked like in Europe in the 1880s. And so he first traveled to Belgium in 1885, and he discovered a type of art called Japanese art, and it had a lot of bright colors. So he had been painting and drawing with very dark colors, and then he found Japanese art which had a lot of light colors. And so this really influenced his style. In 1886, he went to Paris, and he met other artists like Gogh and Toulouse-Lautrec, and this is when he discovered Impressionism. Now, I think it was 2 years ago that we had talked about Impressionism, but I brought in a little picture painted by Monet that'll kind of remind you what Impressionism looked like. Impressionism uses color and light. And oftentimes when you look at an Impressionist painting close up, it just kind of looks like a mess. But when you step back, you can really see a beautiful painting. And he also discovered a technique called pointillism. Now last year we had talked about pointillism. Do you guys remember this picture when I talked to you about pointillism? This picture is by Seurat. So Maximus, do you remember how this picture was made? Go ahead.
By dots.
By dots, yeah. Pointillism is a series of art where you create a picture using nothing but dots. So this has millions of dots. Indeed, it took this artist 2 years to make this painting. And so with the combination of Impressionism and Pointillism, Van Gogh developed a new style, and so this is often referred to as a post-impressionist. And so now when people talk about the style of Van Gogh, they say he was a post-impressionist. So in 1888, Vincent left Paris, and he went to a small country town in France called Arles. And he was happy there for a little while, and he painted some of his most famous and prettiest paintings there. But it is thought that Vincent van Gogh maybe suffered from a form of epilepsy. And that's a condition that can take on various forms, but sometimes it can affect your brain a little bit. So he had some difficulties with his brain. And he, at times, would go to various doctors and special hospitals to try and get help for the problems that he was having in his brain. So in 1989, while he was at a special hospital, he started painting with small stripes instead of dots, and also later started to use swirls. So he was kind of moving away from using dots to create pictures, and he started using stripes. And later on, you guys can come up and take a closer look at this picture, and you'll really be able to see that this whole picture is made from stripes. But then once he started adding swirls, he really kind of discovered his own type of style. And this is his painting called Starry Night. And I know you guys know this painting because Mr. Linder has it hanging in your classroom. So he did a whole series. This one is by a different artist who used Van Gogh as an inspiration. But this was Starry Night, and it was painted in June in 1889 in St. Remy. And so you'll be able to come up later and really look at the swirls and the circles that he used to create his artwork. Now the sad thing is Vincent van Gogh passed away in 1890, and he was only 37. So that meant that